What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a good day and I hope you're excited for the 3v3 tournament that's going to be happening on February 7th. That, of course, is going to be on TTS. You can watch it on my channel. If you're going to play, you're going to have to be in my Discord. So if you need any of that stuff, just leave a comment down below. If you have any questions about the 3v3 format or the tournament itself, leave it down in the comments below. And please share this video with as many people as you can, because I just know someone's going to sign up for this event and at least one person is going to get tripped up by one of these questions. And let me start off by saying that hopefully these get an official answer, but these are my rulings if not. So as the tournament organizer, my goal is to have these events work the exact same as the side events at Worlds are going to work. And, I mention it later in the slideshow, but because this is a casual event, because this is a casual format, I should say, similar to Commander, there's some quirks that don't necessarily gel with competitive play, and rulings and answers and things like that are probably not as important. So it's just one of those things where keep that in mind as we navigate um these weird interactions with the format. So if none of these get an official FAQ, if they don't put out like a little article that debates or debunks anything in this video, this is going to be your guide for the 3v3 event that I'm hosting on the 7th, for how these weird quirky situations are going to work. So number one, start of game and when you would lose effects. Again, we haven't really gotten an official answer, but we have had um, some statements from UVS employees that there is only one start of the game and only one end of the game. So this means that before the game begins and start of game characters must be in your first slot or your point character, or before the game begins and start of the game, to begin the game and resolve their statics. Examples include Happy Chaos getting bullet counters, Anji Zoe searching their deck for an extra resource, Vexalia Resourceful Hunter getting to put the mark your prey in the bin. So those characters will have to be your point characters because there is only one before the game begins trigger. Vexalia maybe not quite as important, right? If Vexalia, or if you're playing Hero 2 / retro versions of 3v3, like with Eraserhead, those characters, you can still get them into the discard pile throughout the game. So it's probably not as important. But if you want their static to happen, they have to begin the game in play. This also means that Ghidorah doesn't function properly at all. If he is the point character, he gets counters, but you won't lose the game when he reaches 0 health. So his static won't trigger either. If he's not the point character, he won't get the counters, and then you're just a 10 health character. So if you want Ghidorah to kind of work as intended, there is a world where maybe after we get the format kind of rolling, or potentially there's an official wording where they just kind of say, it works how you expect it to, but so far right now, the current understanding is, there's one start of game and only one lose the game or end of game trigger. So this goes for, I think it's the second Reiner. There's a Reiner who's like, when you would die, you transform instead with like 17 health. He only works if he is your anchor character, because you would not lose the game from him being reduced to 0 if he is the first or second character. So you get to choose the order. These characters aren't like by any means useless. At least for most of them. I mean, Ghidorah is, right? But Ghidorah doesn't necessarily have a place in like super casual formats, according to most people. So I can understand where they might just let this one rock. So if this is something that people are really opposed to and against, maybe as a casual, unofficial thing, we can take a look at it and try to get characters to quote unquote work how you expect them to, or really how you want them to. But as of right now, there's only one start of game trigger and only one end of game trigger. And that means that the order of operations when a character is defeated, once a character is defeated, that player will replace it with their next character in order until all 3 characters have been defeated, at which point they lose. And number 2, whenever a player swaps in a new character, the current combat phase ends. Players will choose up to non-8 character cards in their stage, then sacrifice the rest. Active player chooses first. Maintain all other aspects of the game, including cards in the hand, momentum, deck, discard, etc. So this is where it gets kind of confusing. Is there like a pause condition here? What happens to all the response windows? Is it like in Magic the Gathering where you end the turn and everything that's like on the stack goes away? This is just ending a phase. Does everything in that phase end? So it's not super clear. This is the one I hope that they clear up the most, because this is the one where I can really see it going either way, and neither version of this is really clean cut. There's no version of this that is more simple than the others. So unless otherwise clarified by the time of the event, the first thing that will happen is the character swap. Once a character is defeated, that character will replace it with their next character in order. Then resolve all response windows that opened, because in my understanding is that the game cannot progress to another phase until all current response windows that are open are closed. So I do believe that that's, copacetic with the rules, that you cannot progress the phase without closing all the response windows that are opened. And that's really why we need clarification is, when a player swaps in a new character, the current combat phase ends. Is that superseding the rule that you can't progress the phase, or is it not, right? Because if it supersedes the rule for progressing phases, we get some really lackluster character interactions, and like defensively, a defensive-minded player can die intentionally to deny certain triggers and certain activations and stuff like that. So it does matter quite a bit. But so so we're gonna resolve all the response windows that opened after the character swap. Then the combat phase ends, and you will choose up to 8 non-character cards in your stage and sacrifice the rest. Then you resolve the end phase. I should have added the sacrificing part in here, because the combat phase ends, then you sacrifice, and then you move on to the end phase. That is my understanding of how it will go. So anything that triggers in the end phase will utilize your new character. Anything, this means that the new character's ability will be active during the lingering response windows from taking damage. So again, my understanding, this could go either way. I would be totally fine with it being ruled whatever way. But my understanding is that you defeat the current character, you pause everything, you swap in the new character, you then have to resolve all of the response windows, so this new character can respond to things like after you are dealt damage, because you have, that window has opened, and this ability is playable in that window. So that's my understanding currently. Then you would move on to the sacrificing part of things right after the combat phase, but before the end phase. Then you would resolve all end phase triggers. So this new character should be active. They're in the stage, they have text, they have abilities, and is active during the response windows that opened. If there's no response windows that open, from taking damage, whatever, then you just move on, right? Like there's nothing else to really resolve. But this new character can do things during the end phase. So if you have an end phase character, if you have a character that has an end phase ability, having them in the second or third slot would seem to be pretty beneficial, right? Because you can, when your first character dies, you could swap in a new character, maybe something like Hood or something like that, so you can target down a rival foundation after your first character is defeated. That's my understanding. Again, this is probably the most contentious one. This is probably the most confusing element of the new format, and the one that I hope that they clarify the most. But this is the order of operations as I see it as the tournament organizer. And I am definitely willing to hear some feedback. If there's something that makes more sense than this, please let me know. Alternate win conditions are pretty simple. I like the idea that alternate win conditions only defeat the current character, just because superseding most of the game and stuff like that is kind of wonky, and it's not like a multiplayer game. Like in Commander, alternate win conditions, there's 3 people that are theoretically trying to stop you, and you usually have to do like a infinite combo or something to win anyways. So on a one-on-one thing, I would totally get behind the idea that alternate win conditions only defeat the current character, but they're already hard enough to pull off, that I don't know, like two of them, almost all alternate win conditions are based on having a lot of foundations in play anyways. And the sacrificing rule means that you'd almost have to try to do it with your first character before you defeat any characters, and if you can pull that off, I don't think it's like we've probably been here for an hour anyways, right? We want the game to end. So, um, since there's only one lose the game trigger, there can only be one win the game trigger. This means that affects it say you win the game, end the game, regardless of how many characters your rival has left. As of right now, I think the only standard ones in play or that are legal, um, that I can think of are choose knife edge deathmatch, which would require your opponent to have 8 committed foundations and not block an attack, right? So that's again that's one of those um things where after a character is defeated, when you sacrifice down to 8 cards, if you just keep one asset, you're immune to this, right? If you sacrifice one foundation from there, you're immune to that win con. The misinformation campaign alternate win condition with the pamphlets, you have to have like a deadlock amount of pamphlet counters in play, which granted, I think those can be either player. I don't have it in front of me right now. Um, but that one is another one where it takes so many cards in play. Was it spreading the word? That's it. Yeah. Pamphlet counters. Oh, no, it's rival stage only. Yeah. So your opponent has to have 10 foundations with counters on them. And again, if you can pull that off, that's probably easier, or that's probably harder. I mean, than defeating 3 characters. I'm a Hero 2 is probably the only one that's really annoying because you can definitely stack those up over like your first character, and then by the time your second character comes in, they can maybe just pull it off. Right? It's a 1A enhance. It doesn't have to be 0-2. So that's probably the only one that's really worth considering. Once you get into like retro, there's some nasty ones, but they've nerfed pretty much every alternate win condition at some point or another, or they've made it something that the sacrificing rule of characters being defeated kind of nerfs. Basically you can think of most alternate win cons as deadlock abilities only, or they're like specifically debuild type abilities. So anyways, I think alternate win conditions are fine. This is how they're going to work again until someone tells me otherwise. Alternate IP reprints. So this is pretty cut and dry too, just from what we've heard in the rulings discussion forum on the main cord, is these are separate characters and they can be on the same team. And I picked this one specifically because these are mechanically the same, and it's been said that they are different characters. The Levi one, I think he's like technically mechanically unique because of the survey core keyword. But yeah, you can have the double Levi team, you can have the double Ryu team, you can have the double Caleb team. People have said it goes against the spirit of the format. I don't even know if I necessarily disagree with that, but it is mechanically uninteresting. So if that's something you want to do, none of these characters that have double reprints even seem like they're like super hard pressed to do a special gimmick, except Caleb. Caleb's the only one I understand. And he's probably the strongest one too, being able to burn the rival and kill them on their own turn. So definitely definitely watch out for that one. Definitely watch out for the Caleb Wiedegast burn you on your own turn to end your turn. He's probably the strongest one of the characters that can double up, but this one is a very simple answer. And then the February ban list is in effect. The ban list doesn't officially go into effect until February 9th, but I think the format will be healthier without these 2 cards anyways. So fuck Unyielding Destruction, fuck Equipment Heist. They're not in the casual format. Big whoop. Tips and tricks. Build a bigger deck. 60 card decks will end up cycling multiple times, and you take 2 damage for each time you have cycled during the game. But remember, the damage happens at the end of the turn, though. So even when you fatally cycle, you still have a chance to deal some damage and maybe even win the game first, or even knock out a rival character, progress your board state, etc., etc. You get like one final turn even when you cycle, but If you watch any of the stream games I played, um, in the 3v3 format, I was cycling pretty much all the time. I wasn't even really playing characters that self mill a ton. I wasn't even really playing characters that draw too many cards, although I was playing Mothra quite a bit. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe 8 hand size was enough. But yeah, definitely build a bigger deck because you don't want to be cycling too often. You don't want to be losing that discard pile for your amazing synergies. Point characters should focus on ramping resources. With a special nod to momentum and card draw, you sacrifice cards on stage when a character is defeated, but not cards in hand or momentum. Theoretically, there's a world where you get to like 10 cards in hand and then you stop using the draw step entirely and you just keep drawing cards from different effects and things like that. So there's no rule that says you have to discard down to hand size. And in this format, you don't have to, redraw your hand or anything like that. So ramping a ton of cards in hand could be a valid strategy. Make sure you have an answer for I'm a Hero 2. We just talked about this one. It can't be sealed, so Filled with Doubt is not an answer to this card. Skipping the enhanced step should work, I believe. I believe it's an enhanced. Is it response on play? No, it's an. So definitely skip the enhanced step. Delete it from existence with Genkai's. Remove it from the game. Maybe even play the card that removes counters from a rival character. I don't know. That one's probably not quite strong enough. Soothing Grog's Rage. That one might become more relevant in Godzilla because there's a lot of counters in that set. But yeah, make sure you have an answer for that because it seems like the most likely alternate win condition to actually end a game early. Build cards into your card pool before playing your lethal attack since you won't get the opportunity to afterwards. And you can sacrifice the Blink Foundations committed to pass the check anyways. So if you've got 10 foundations and you're about to kill your rival and you're about to sacrifice down to 8 anyways, you and because the sacrifice happens before the end phase where you'd build these cards, the way to have more than 8 resources after you kill your rival is to build into your card pool and then play an attack. So this kind of makes characters like Shune like way more popular or way stronger, right? Because you can play like one attack, build, play another attack, commit out a bunch of tenacious cards that who's going to end up sacrificing anyways, and then get a big damage bump for it and rebuild his stage and stuff like that. So he's very much like suited for the 3v3 format. Cards like Census, who, looping around cards that were probably going to get sacrificed, and maybe you can build them on a later turn, maybe you can block with them, really cool stuff like that. So yeah, build cards into your card pool, play cards as forms, and then try to kill your rival afterwards to boost up your stage. And then killing the rival on their own turn is better than ever. Not only was it always just kind of a sick move you could do with really weird random effects that pretty much never comes up, now it ends the current combat phase regardless of whose turn it is, which I wouldn't be that surprised if they like reverse that rule or if they put in like an addendum, to prevent it from ending your own turn. But again, that's why Caleb's burn effect is like super strong. Ariel Kikosho now has a really, really legitimate threat behind it if you can make it lethal. Ending your opponent's turn and knocking out a character is like the ultimate 2-for-1 in this format. So definitely be aware of that angle. Utilize it in your decks if you can, but don't fall victim to it because it is a huge momentum swing. Keep in mind, this is meant to be a casual format. I'm just hosting an event to help try and get players organized to play this new format, maybe help them have a better idea for what to play in side events at Worlds, and, make people happy. We're trying to put a smile on people's faces. So we do have a prize for the winner, even though it's a casual format. The winner gets a Zeke Beast Titan Chrome and a Blitz box. So very, very cool stuff. This is a free event. I want people to have fun. I want people to be excited, and I want people to get something cool for, helping us enjoy the game together. And also, don't forget Hero 2, February 14th. Top 8 all gets cash prizes, and first place gets a signed Aizawa plus 4 promo erase. So that's a super duper sick prize. Anyone who was an Eraserhead player back in the day was almost certainly someone who played like only Eraserhead or mostly Eraserhead, and having the 4 promo erases felt pretty mandatory after a certain point because they are the sickest promos of their era for a long time, maybe even still to this day. A lot of you MHA heads, I wouldn't be surprised if you would believe that the nationals and the regional promos of this cycle of like what I called like the comic book or onomatopoeia promos, where they've got like the float and the thwip and the bolt or zap or whatever in the background, whatever that character's, you know, quirk sound effect was. Those promos were like the best promos we had for the longest time and still stand up today. So very, very, very cool pricing for the Hero 2 tournament. Um, you know, first place, all the pricing that was on the poster has been upgraded by 25 bucks. So first place gets 125, second place gets 75, third and fourth will get $50 now, and then fourth through eighth will get $25 cash. And there's still more prizes. I still haven't named all the prizes for this event. So go check out the event page, check out the additional information. And Hero 2 will also be TTS hosted on my channel. And then last but not least is Webcam Warriors, February 21st. It's going to start at 8 a.m. All these events are starting early. I've gotten feedback from my East Coasters that they don't want to be up till midnight. So we're trying it out at 8 a.m. on the Pacific time. So hopefully I'm going to get the West Coasters complain that they didn't want to wake up that early. What can you do? Webcam Warriors, it's going to be hosted on Teacup Gaming. That's the MGLA guys. I'm going to get some help from Team MGLA once again. It's going to be an absolutely awesome time. First place is going to get 200 bucks. That is an absolutely great prize right before you're about to travel down to Dallas. You know, you're going to be paying for Ubers. You're going to be, you know, buying drinks at the bar. You're going to be paying for that DoorDash food, going out to eat, man. Having 200 bucks in your pocket sounds pretty good. Not to mention, you're going to want to plan some side events. That is basically paying for every side event you can imagine, right? Like, what side events, like what, 30 bucks? That's 6 side events. You know, that's an entire weekend of side events for most people. So getting all your side events paid for is pretty sick. Second place gets 100 bucks. Third and fourth walking away with 25. And all of top 4 is going to get another $25 in credit to Stark Dark. That's true for the Hero 2 format as well. I was talking about how I haven't even been able to mention all the prizing. So Stark Dark doing an awesome job putting out some credit. So if you guys need to pick up some last minute cards, you know, if you got some promos, maybe you want to bling out your deck a bit. If you do well in these events, you're going to end up with some credit to Stark Dark. And I'm sure you can do a Worlds pickup or something like that if you get in touch with them, you know, maybe before the 21st, you know, maybe reach out to them and see what they got in stock before the 21st. But yeah, for those last minute Worlds purchases, that Stark Dark credit's going to come in handy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope if you got any questions down below, we can help answer it. And most importantly, I hope you all have fun. I'm trying to put together a whole bunch of events and make February just the hypest, you know, most impactful month of the year for universes. And it's not ideal to do them all back to back on weekends like this, but what can I say, man? It's World season. We want to get the hype train going, and thank you to Undefeated at Locals, Response on Play, the Trading Post, Stark Dark, Let's Talk UVS, everybody who's making this possible. So definitely check them out as well. Sorry, Team Block Party for the Zeke Chrome. So yeah, hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but thank you all for watching this. I love you guys. I'll see you at the events. Peace out.